Kia ora Year 12 and Year 11. This is the first video that I'm going to do on using negative powers and then fractional powers to simplify algebraic expressions. So we looked at this really briefly in class. I'm going to do 4 videos of increasing difficulty. So in this one, all I'm going to do is work with negative powers and numbers. So we started off by looking at some patterns with powers. So when we first learned about powers, let's look at the powers of 2. We've got 2 to the power of 1, 2 to the power of 2, 2 to the power of 3, 2 to the power of 4, and so on. So this is just 2. 2 squared is 4, 2 cubed is 8, and 2 to the power of 4 is 16. Every time that we increase the power, we're multiplying by 2. Okay, so my powers are going up by 1 every time. There are lots of ways to teach negative powers, but this way is just showing you the pattern that we're working with. So now, if I want to go from 16 back to 8, I'm going to divide by 2. From 8 back to 4, I'm going to divide by 2. From 4 back to 2, I'm going to divide by 2. And every time I do that, my power drops by 1. Right, from 4 down to 3, 2 cubed divided by 2 gets me back to 2 squared, and so on. So what happens if I divide 2 by 2? Well, I'll get 1. Dropping the power by 1, that gives me 2 to the power of 0. Now that all should be very familiar from year 9, 10 and 11. We know that anything to the power of 0 is defined as 1. But what we're going to do now is to go back even further. So I'm going to do that on the next slide. Okay, so we've got our little powers of 2, just shrinking them a wee bit. So dividing by 2 as I head down the series. What happens when I divide 1 by 2? Well, I get 1/2. When I divide by 2 again, I get 1/4, and so on. So what happened to my powers? Well, they dropped by 1 every time. And that's how negative powers work. So 2 to the power of negative 2 is equal to 1 divided by 2 squared. 2 to the power of negative 1 is equal to 1 over 2 to the power of 1. So whenever we see a negative power, it means 1 over 2 to the positive power. I'm going to do some examples on the next slide. Alright, starting from the first one, 3 to the power of negative 1 will be 1 over 3 to the power of 1, which is just 1/3. 4 to the power of negative 2 is going to be 1 over 4 squared, which is 1/16. 5 to the power of negative 3 will be 1 over 5 cubed, which is 1 over 125. So every time we see a negative power, we think 1 over the positive power. Right? So 1 over 3 to the power of 1, 1 over 4 squared, 1 over 5 cubed. So we're going to do the same thing when we hit questions 4 and 5. 1/2 to the power of negative 3 is the same as 1 over 1/2 cubed. But we know that 1 over 1/2 is equal to the reciprocal of 1/2 cubed. So pretty soon we're going to skip that middle step and head to this. If we see a negative power, we take the reciprocal first. We haven't quite finished this one though. We need to expand this out. So we get 2 cubed, which is 8, over 1 cubed, which is 1, which just leaves me with 8. For this next one, 4/3 to the negative 2. Well, the negative power means that I really want to have 1 over 4/3 squared. So 1 over 4/3 is equal to 3/4 squared, squaring the numerator, and the denominator leaves me with 9/16. On the next slide, I'm going to give you 5 to try for yourselves before you head to the Walker Workbook. Okay, these are 5 for you to try. Please do them in your book so that I can check them, and then I'm going to go through the answers. Right, so the first one, 5 to the negative 2, is 1 over 5 squared, which is 1/25. 6 to the power of negative 1 is 1 over 6 to the power of 1. 3 to the negative 3 is 1 over 3 cubed, which is 1 over 27. Now 1/3 to the power of negative 1 is equal to the reciprocal of 1/3, which is just 3 to the power of positive 1, which leaves us with 3. 2/3 to the power of negative 4 is equal to the reciprocal of 2/3, 3 over 2 to the power of 4. Now that equals 3 to the power of 4 over 2 to the power of 4. Running out of space, I'm not going to use a new slide, but I'd like to line up the equal sign in my book if I had a book. And here 3 to the power of 4 is 81, 2 to the power of 4 is 16, 81 over 16, and it's fine to leave it in this context as an improper fraction. Alright, so now if you go to the Walker Workbook, you should be able to do some of page 11. Okay, so page 11 in the Walker Workbook, and I'll give you the delta numbers in class. Do lots of practice on these because the next step is to start using variables as well as numbers. Thanks for watching.